Welcome to the course. This is the first launch of the course on mass recruitment. In lesson number 1, we'll discuss working with the hiring manager and preparing for the search, specifically for mass recruitment. So let's get started. So why would someone need to take this course? You'll be able to speed up filling vacancies and improve the quality of hiring by implementing the right mass recruitment tools. About my experience, if we haven't met before, my name is Mike Pritula, and I first encountered mass recruitment in my first position. My first position was as both a recruiter and a trainer, and my first task was to mass recruit for the position of loan officer in Simferopol. I did this remotely at first, and then I went there in person. This was, of course, very challenging for me. It was very unusual, as I was living in Kharkov at the time. My task was to recruit a group of about 20 people in Simferopol, and then go there to train my partner. I recruited them remotely, using websites, social networks, and employment centers. In short, all possible channels. I interviewed them remotely, then went there, conducted on-site communication, and then trained them. Later, I had the opportunity to recruit staff in other cities, including Kharkov. Then I moved to Alpha Bank's head office in Kiev, where I was also involved in mass recruitment. There were vacancies for loan processing specialists. We needed to fill 30 vacancies per month. In addition to my standard vacancies, there were other positions I was handling. There were vacancies for call center operators, and we needed to recruit cashiers and loan specialists. Basically, there were many different vacancies. And I've worked in retail at various jobs as well. Let's say I had this situation, I had a recruiter with whom I organized mass recruitment. That's when I first encountered the phenomenon where people are invited on a first-come, first-served basis. They come, wait, and have interviews with the recruiter. And also at the STB TV channel Gaming, we used mass recruitment and mass interview tools for entry-level positions, like various administrators, some new specialists, beginners, and other positions where people were suitable without experience. Mass recruitment tools were needed there too. In our work, relying on global best practices, here they are. And I would also appreciate if you could write about yourself, your city, position, and company, so it is clear who is interested in the topic of mass recruitment, who is with us today. So please write in the chat your city, position, and company, specifically about your work. This way we will get to know each other better, that it is in high definition. And please explain what that means. I do not know that acronym. The first thing that finds beauty salon chains, and I just found this, a workshop on boiler aesthetics. Yes, I see. So mass recruitment, I am sure, is present in your life. Whoever else is ready, please write too. Those watching on Facebook can also write. I am keeping my finger on the pulse. Excellent. In this course, there will be homework assignments after each lesson, the completion of which will allow you to receive a diploma. The course itself consists of 6 lessons, but they are very comprehensive. Today you will already see what it looks like. What we are going to talk about today, we will discuss how to gather information from the hiring manager, create a candidate profile and evaluation scorecard, write a job description, phone call script, and the text for presenting the vacancy during an interview. These are the kinds of things. Just a second, it is turned on now. These are the topics we will cover with you today. So let us get started. Let us start with what mass recruiting actually is. What kind of beast is it? What does it consist of? This is when a recruiter might be working on 10 vacancies simultaneously. This also happens sometimes when a store is launching and there are many positions to fill. I also see Victoria, she's writing from Kharkov. Okay. This is when you need 10, 20, 30 or more people for a single position. That means 20 cashiers, 30 salespeople. It's when you often need to hire people yesterday, because mass recruiting is often used in retail. People there can suddenly quit without notice, and you need to urgently find replacements in retail or the beauty industry. This is when you need to send a batch of candidates for interviews at a store or branch that's located remotely, when entry requirements for candidates are minimal or even non-existent, when you just need people, hands, movers who don't drink. This is when hiring managers aren't always even involved in the recruitment process. And this happens to be true as well. That's what mass recruiting is all about. But it's not just about specific industry sectors. Mass recruiting can also happen in high-tech companies like IT firms, when we're hiring call center operators or other high-volume positions. That's also mass recruiting. People often joke about mass recruiting that the requirements are minimal. It's like this. For classic recruiting, you need experience, education, courses, skills, superpowers. For mass recruiting, criminal record or not, no criminal record means you're hired. That's apparently the name of the company. Okay, let's move on. So the main differences from conventional recruiting. So what makes mass recruiting different? The speed is usually higher here. The speed of the entire interview process, the recruiter's work, and filling vacancies. The number of candidates that recruiters interact with and work with is also much higher here. In mass recruiting, the main focus is on active candidates, those who are actively job searching. Although in this course, we'll be looking at how to work with passive candidates, not active ones. How to poach candidates. That happens too. I see Olesha is also writing to us, mentioning McDonald's. I know about that. Great. Also mass recruiting, obviously. Next, when most candidates have a low level of awareness and responsibility, and sometimes even culture, reliability, and honesty. Well, that happens too, although it's not always the case. These are some of the differences. For example, when I was recruiting for the loan processing department at Alpha Bank, the candidates were quite intelligent individuals because the loan processing department consists of people who review loan applications, make decisions, work according to scripts, and the requirements there were actually quite high. This is when there's a high percentage of those who don't show up for interviews, a phenomenon called ghosting. High turnover during the probationary period is also common here. Low motivation to work, and the main criteria for choosing a job are reliability and salary size. By reliability, we mean that the company won't scam you, won't deceive you, won't delay your salary, and so on. These can be the differences from regular recruiting. So we have to acknowledge that mass recruiting is different. We shouldn't approach it like standard recruiting. Otherwise, we won't achieve the high speed and large numbers required. That's what's required for mass recruitment. You might think it's boring, but it's definitely not. It's never boring. It's really exciting. If you do it right, it's even interesting. I see someone else writing about a recruiter, Kronberg. Okay, thank you to everyone who wrote. So mass recruitment is interesting. I mean, from my experience, if you do it right, it's really interesting, fun, and exciting. In general, it's something to be proud of when you fill many vacancies. For example, under my leadership, my recruiter once filled 50 positions for a store opening. It was a gourmet food store in Kiev at Bessarabka. Now there's a Silpo supermarket there. She found 50 great people. I mean, there was great staff, a great team. But she interviewed people every day, in batches, as they say. She invited them there. She didn't even make a schedule, just said, come at 12 and wait for your turn. And people came to her waiting in line. Of course, it didn't get to huge queues. She interviewed them all. It was challenging, but she was proud of the result afterward. Well, I was filling positions, for example, at Alpha Bank, I was filling 10 positions a month. And with mass recruitment, I filled 50, 3 loan processing employees, 10 call center operators, and my 10 standard positions. I was also proud that I had filled 50 positions. That's awesome, really awesome. So it's definitely not boring and it's definitely exciting. Next, there are factors for successful mass hiring. They differ from others. They somewhat overlap with traditional hiring. But for mass hiring, I suppose you could say. Firstly, contact with the hiring manager is very important, like yin and yang. That's the yoga symbol. That is, it's really important. I even want to write that the recruiter should be an extension of the hiring manager. Next, there should be a clear understanding of the role. It's very helpful here when the recruiter sees these people. I wrote, go out into the field. That is when a recruiter, for example, if it's retail, went to a store, spent half a day there and understood how these people work. So they're not sitting in an office recruiting for the store, but really understanding what it's all about. Next, the next success factor is having clear criteria for candidate selection. There should be criteria for when we interview people. And showing some candidates while not showing others is bad. There should be criteria by which we evaluate and make decisions on whether a candidate is suitable or not, sometimes even without the hiring manager. Ideally, it should be, because often mass recruitment is for a restaurant chain. I have an acquaintance who works as a top manager for a restaurant chain, I don't know, maybe 50 restaurants, for example, and the central office team recruits. They need to recruit people for all the restaurants. It's understandable that it's not always possible to involve the hiring manager. Often staff is needed for today. Someone quit yesterday or a few people left. Today we need people to work. Often you need to hire and send people to work immediately. Next, the ideal job posting text. We'll talk about that, but it's extremely important because in mass hiring, we focus on active candidates who are looking for work themselves, and we need the best to send their resumes to us, not to our competitors. A salary that's adequate for the market. Mass hiring often involves working with people on low wages. For example, with salaries close to $500 as opposed to $1,000 for regular hiring or $2,000 for IT hiring. These are all different conditions, different people. It's extremely important here to pay an adequate salary because the lower the salary level for a position, the more critically people react to small deviations. Something else that can be sold besides salary is extremely important. Modern or rather timely and honest payment, even if there's an unofficial delay. I also had such a project, you could say, where I needed to set up hiring for a company that had a small official part, and the unofficial part was paid with delays. So I immediately built a hiring process where there was no deception. We said, you have this official part and this unofficial part. This is paid strictly according to the law, and this is paid with a delay of a month and a half, for example. So we addressed it right away. We didn't hide this in any way. Because if you hide it, it won't be like that. I'll respond to the person who has no sound, send the instructions like this. Next, there should be an adequate workload for the recruiter. That is, there's a limit to everything. And in mass hiring, there is one too. Well, for example, I have this universal ideal formula that I derived for the recruiter's workload. It goes like this. To understand how many vacancies a recruiter should fill per month on average, take the sum of $10,000 and divide it by the average salary of the candidate. If your recruiter in mass hiring fills positions with a salary of $500, then an adequate workload is 20 filled positions per month. We divided $10,000 by 500. Accordingly, an average recruiter can handle 1.5 to 2 times more positions than they fill. This is a reasonable workload. That is, they can manage 40 positions and fill 20 per month. This is reasonable. Anything higher becomes unreasonable or requires some simplifications in the recruitment process. And a good atmosphere in the team, that's also very important. I mean, all the recruiters I've managed, these were people who were strongly influenced by the relationships and atmosphere in the team. The more I, as a manager, tried to make the atmosphere positive and productive, the better the recruiters worked. Let's move on. Now let's talk about gathering information from the hiring manager, which is where any recruitment begins, and mass recruitment is no exception. Usually everything starts with a recruitment request. If the company hasn't implemented a recruitment request system, I strongly recommend doing so. Here we'll have screenshots of this request form, and for the students of this course, the request form will be available as additional material in a Word file attached in their personal account. So, there should be a job description, and then all these sections should follow. The full title of the vacant position, department, store, or branch, the planned start date for the employee, with reasonable expectations because we can't ask for yesterday's deadline today, how many people are needed, why the position is open, the required level of the candidate, what tasks need to be solved, work schedule, flexible hours, business trips, specifics. Next come the formal requirements for the candidate, and I divide them into mandatory and desirable. That is, to make it clear what's the minimum and what's ideal. Next, selection processes. In this case, for example, in my team at one of the companies, I gave the hiring manager the option to choose whether the recruiter deeply engages in the selection process or acts as a researcher, just sending out resumes. You can remove this item. Maybe your process is like this, and you'd like it to always be this way. So think about whether you need this section. Here, essentially, is the varying degree to which the recruiter processes candidates from minimal to maximum. Next are the job responsibilities and various nuances. Well, that's basically it. This information should be collected. If there's no recruitment request form for the company or it hasn't been filled out, you need to go through and discuss all these points in a meeting with the hiring manager. So this is the format for filling out during the meeting. Next is the search map or search strategy. This is needed, first and foremost, if you plan to search for passive candidates. That is, if, for example, there aren't enough resumes received. If there are always enough resumes received for the job openings, you can skip this, because then we're not influencing anything, we're just getting what we get. If you need to look for passive candidates, that is, those who are not actively job searching, which is possible in mass recruitment. I will show you this in the lesson about searching. I mean, there are even a lot of people for mass recruitment on Facebook. There are even movers on Facebook. Not to mention that there are movers on sites like Kabanchik and so on. And they are definitely on Viber. So the search strategy is something that is discussed with the hiring manager. Here, of course, we are not dealing with a mass vacancy. And I put it on purpose because it is even harder to do all this for non-mass vacancies than for mass ones. It would be much easier for mass vacancies here, but I did not simplify it. So we should discuss the job title, possible synonyms for this job title, education, mandatory keywords, additional keywords, websites and blogs, forums and certifications if they are expected, groups on Facebook, LinkedIn, Telegram, and you can add Viber here. Where do we hire from? What tools do candidates and donor companies use? This also needs to be discussed with the hiring manager. Next is creating a candidate profile and candidate evaluation scorecard. From this block, the recruitment request, and if there was no request, then from communication with the hiring manager, we should form a set of selection criteria. In the lesson about candidate evaluation, we will come back to this. It is about the candidate evaluation scorecard. So we need to create a table with 3 criteria for screening during the phone interview, which we will use to understand whether we invite the person for an in-person interview or not, and 5 criteria for selection in the face-to-face interview. That is, 5 criteria by which we'll rate candidates on a 5-point scale, and then decide which of the interviewed candidates we hire. Why 3 and 5? The thing is, when there are many criteria, the significance of each individual criterion becomes diluted. I mean, you can have more, but we'll select 3 here and 5 there. So there should be 5 of the most key ones. And believe me, even 5 is quite a lot. And again, it comes from here, from the mandatory and desired requirements. So it can be knowledge, it can be some personal qualities, some competencies, anything. And note that motivation is a separate criterion for us. That is what kind of motivation there is and how strong it is. Salary expectation is a separate criterion in addition to these 8 that we've established here. Next, during the selection process, we'll have candidates and we'll simply assign scores. So these criteria should be defined at this stage in advance. Next, the job posting text. The job posting text plays a crucial role nowadays because many websites claim that they have more active job postings than active resumes. So now we can say it's a candidate's market. The candidate chooses where to go to work. Any candidate who is job hunting sees a lot of job openings, and you need to make it so. Someone's complaining about the sound here, but I think if anyone had sound issues, people would have written about it. Please write if you're listening from your phone. Write in the chat, I'm listening from my phone and the sound is okay. So I can understand that someone's sound is okay on their phone. There's no need to write that someone didn't hear what I was saying. Your comment about the sound will help the person understand that it's their local problem. So the job posting text should not and cannot be boring under any circumstances. For example, this text for a large company, blah, 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 required, blah, blah, blah. We invite you to work. No one is interested in that. People will respond to such job postings, but only those who I call desperate. I'll put it this way. Look, even the worst job posting text will still get responses, but it's not because the text is decent. It's because people don't even read the text. I mean, there are candidates who just see the title and accordingly, they just responded because the title seemed suitable and they didn't even read any text. They just opened it. Such people are not very suitable for us because it turns out that the person sends a bunch of resumes to companies that have completely different job posting texts, completely different job openings. It's like, wherever luck takes them. I've already applied everywhere, but I'm not being invited for interviews anywhere. So I'm just sending my resume everywhere. Really good candidates only send their resumes to companies with well-written job postings. So you should have something like this, a good text. By the way, I took this from Facebook. The language here is very lively. Everything is written in a very natural way. Well, for example, this could very well be in a job posting too. We've decided to improve the lives of 2 more people. We're getting more and more clients. And once again, we can't give them the attention they deserve. The writer will be grand and so on. This is good text. So if we're talking about your job posting text, what should there be less of? There should be less of all sorts of what's called bureaucratic language. Things like due to rapid business growth, a dynamic developing company urgently requires. There should be fewer meaningless phrases like growth opportunity. It's unclear what growth opportunity means. Less of what everyone else will have. This work for a young, energetic team, it's meaningless. 2-word phrases like goal setting don't mean anything. And fewer mistakes. There should be more of this. Natural speech, where you write as if you were talking to someone face-to-face in an interview. We're a startup in the field, I'm joking a bit, in the field of producing eco-friendly meatless sausages. Statements should be meaningful, not just opportunity for growth, but every other sausage maker became a senior sausage maker in 2 years. There's uniqueness. In other words, it's not something everyone has, but something only you have. Every Friday we have a celebration, sausages, blah, 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 and so on. Not short 2-word sentences, but 5 to 7 words with emojis are fine if the site supports them well. When you provide examples, any examples in job postings, it's simply fantastic. And when you have some facts about your company, that's cool too. Next, the job title, it's very important to choose it carefully. This is the first thing that catches a candidate's attention. Moreover, in search results, the candidate doesn't even see what's inside. They only see the job title. Office managers, manager, and so on. The position should reflect the reality and level of the job, and the title should be one that candidates will type into a search, not an internal one. For example, if an office manager in your company is called a junior office maintenance specialist, a candidate who searches for office manager won't find this job posting. You need to write not what you call them, but what the person looking for the job calls them. So please don't use unpopular or internal abbreviations or slang terms for job titles. For example, few people will search for personnel selection manager. They'll search for recruiter. Nobody's going to search for recruiting ninja either. They'll write recruiter. Well, there are many examples here of what's less popular and what's more popular. Furthermore, you don't have to limit yourself to just the job title. You can add some details in parentheses or simply append them. For example, not just sales managers, but jewelry sales managers at TRCR. Then in the search results, the long title first uses the standard short title, followed by the additional information. It attracts even more attention because it takes up more space. Or office manager, PODIL, $600 per month. That also catches attention. And there are various examples here. If it's a driver, specify what kind of car. For an executive assistant, mention what the one-time sign-on bonus might be. Site moderators may change or reject your call to action, but different sites have different requirements, so it's worth trying. So use the opportunity in the title to reveal details, so that in search results, where the candidate sees nothing but the title, you can already stand out from the competition. Next, location is important in mass hiring. Therefore, place the location as high up in the description as possible so that people understand where it is. Next, the job summary. It's called a job summary. Try to explain it somewhere too. Address the candidate directly. Try to use you more often. That is, in our company, you will try to paint a picture for the person of what they'll be doing every day, not responsibilities, but what they'll be doing. Try to start sentences with you will. For example, you will be responsible for recruiting such and such. Next come the requirements. That is, what you're looking for in a candidate and what would be an advantage. I recommend separating these. So separately, we're looking for this, and if you have this, it would be an advantage. This works really well. Next, be sure to continue with the job posting. Find something that sets you apart from others and mention it. When people write, we have a comfortable office, good salary, competitive benefits, and so on, this isn't better than others. This is like everyone else. You need to stand out with something. And be sure to include a call to action at the end of the job posting. That is, write something that nudges the person to take action. You can even provide your Telegram address for people to message you, or give your phone number and write, text me on Viber. If it's WhatsApp, you can include a WhatsApp link so that a person, even if they haven't made up their mind yet, can reach out and ask something about the job. It's a clever tactic. Many people are still hesitant. They want to learn something, clarify things, and sort of make initial contact first. Give them that opportunity. Next, the general structure of the ad. There should be some kind of hook, something that grabs attention from the very beginning. Here is a great example I found, for instance, from SpaceX. Listen to this. SpaceX was founded with the belief that a future where humanity explores the stars is fundamentally more exciting than one where we do not. Today, SpaceX is actively developing technologies that will make this possible, with the ultimate goal of enabling life on Mars. That immediately grabs your attention. Then there should be some kind of inspiration. It could be your mission, or maybe, I do not know, it could be a link to your Instagram, something you are proud of. Then the requirements and a trigger. That is the general structure of the ad. Here is the job posting text. And here I have also deliberately chosen a complex text, a challenging job posting. In mass recruitment, a general vacancy will be simpler, but it is better to aim for the most challenging one here. So there is a general description. There is a small hook here. Next come the expected results. This, by the way, is also a good approach, to write expected results rather than responsibilities, or to write what this person will do every day. So some mass job postings will be about expected results, some about what to do daily. Next are competencies, then what will be an advantage, what we offer, and the call to action. This is the format I recommend using. Next, a checklist. After you have drafted the job posting, quickly run through and check. Have you used a common job title? Have you used emojis in the text if the site allows it? Emojis really do grab attention. Have you described what kind of company it is? Have you listed the expected results? Have you specified the required competencies and what would be an advantage? Have you described something you're offering that's not cliché? Is there a call to action? This is the kind of checklist you need to go through for the job posting. Well, here's a joke that's also from the realm of mass hiring. I read a job ad today. Can you tell me if Kosar Zeleni, Green Reaper, is a salary or a position? What does the selection process look like in mass recruitment? First comes the candidate's resume or application form. That is, a resume if they have one, or an application form, which is filling out some kind of questionnaire if the person doesn't have a resume. Then comes a preliminary phone call to the person, followed by an interview, often in a mass interview format, then a test assignment. I definitely recommend doing this in mass recruitment as well, but we'll talk about this in the lesson on evaluating candidates. Then most often a second interview with the future manager. After that comes reference checks, then security checks, the job offer, onboarding, and adaptation. These are the usual stages. The recruitment process is designed to make recruiting work perfectly. Of course, in mass recruitment, this differs from traditional recruitment, and we'll be breaking that down. So here we have the resume, obviously. We review the resume to see if it meets the requirements or not. The first thing is a phone call. We should have a phone call script for the first contact with the candidate. We should prepare it in advance. That is, we can't make a call without understanding what we're going to say to them. What are the objectives of the first call? It's often perceived as a way to screen out candidates, but that's not the case. This call has two objectives. When the second part of the task is lost, candidates don't make it to the interview. So, the first part is to evaluate against basic requirements, and the second part, if suitable, is to sell the job and the company. This is very important. So even on the first call, you need to be selling the job and the company, even if you had the perfect job posting text. First, the person may not remember where they sent their resume. They might not remember what company you are. And if your company isn't well known, They might not even make the connection in their head that you're that cool company they recently read about. They might forget about it. So we shouldn't rely on the fact that we described everything perfectly in the job posting. Are we going to repeat ourselves now? They've already forgotten. But if you're, I don't know, something like Coca-Cola and they read the text about a call from Coca-Cola, they'll probably think, oh, Coca-Cola, I read about them. If it's a company that's not well known, well, they'll forget. Even if it's Coca-Cola, they might have already forgotten. That's why in the phone call, the first one, you already need to sell the job and invite them to the next stage of the selection process. And if it's not a good fit, the task is simple. End the call as quickly as possible to save time, but without ruining the impression of the company. I mean, not to hang up abruptly, but to wrap up as quickly as possible. So in the first call, there should be a 50-50 rule. 50% of the time you're evaluating, 50% you're selling. You can even craft questions for the candidate that help sell the position. For example, here are two examples. We use a system called Lever to automate our recruiting process. So we're interested to know if you've worked with similar systems before. 30% of our employees are foreigners. Could you tell me what your level of English is? So we first sold our job or company, and then we kind of explain why we're asking first, and then we ask, in explaining why we're asking, we're selling our job opening and our company. This is the structure of the call. This is the kind of script I recommend you prepare. This is the structure, and you, of course, should write it as direct speech. Address the person by their name, preferably several times. Ask if it's a good time to talk. The person could be somewhere in the subway station, answer the call, and the train might be leaving. They might be at work or in an inconvenient place. They might be, I don't know, in the middle of something. And they might not even be able to focus on your call if they're busy with something else right now. So you can say, is this a good time to talk? It's a sign of politeness. Tell them who you are and where you work. And do it unhurriedly, articulating clearly with as much detail as possible and slowly. I work as a recruiter for a company called Overage. By the way, these filler words and so on, you can safely remove them. You don't need to mention them. The person isn't familiar with these details and won't remember them. Just the name of the company. If the company is not well known, you can say we're a supplier to some famous company, or that our clients include some well-known companies. Name the position and describe its mission. Even if the person yes, the person has responded to this job posting. But you still need to say, we have a vacancy for an office manager whose main task is to ensure that all employees in the office are comfortable. Next, ask the screening questions for requirements 1, 2, 3, but make sure to sell. You have a question like this, you say, in our company, we have this and that, so please tell me. Or in our company, we do this and that, so could you please answer? Next, be sure to clarify salary expectations. In other words, say something like, of course, we'll discuss this further during the evaluation, but here we're asking how much you'd like to earn. Be sure to tell them about the company. Say, let me tell you a bit about us. Why? Because look, it's just common courtesy. The person has told you about themselves. And you say, now let me tell you a bit about us. We are such and such a company. We have this kind of store, this kind of branch, this kind of department. Talk a bit about the management as well. Describe the responsibilities of the position. Use the you will format to help the person envision themselves already in this position. You will do this, you will do that. Be sure to explain the selection process. Say, our selection process looks like this. First, we talk on the phone. Then we have a meeting in our office where we give you an on-site test assignment. Then a second meeting, reference checks, security checks. We make a job offer, you accept it. And then the onboarding process begins. And at the end, ask what they've gone through. Are you interested in interviewing with us for this position or going through the selection process? And come to our office, visit the store, or have a full conversation via Zoom or Skype, whatever works for you. This is the structure of the phone call that's both highly sales-oriented on one hand and evaluative on the other. Next, you need to prepare and compose the text for presenting job openings during the interview. This means you should be ready to present at this stage already. This exercise is very helpful. I like to give it to students. Write down for yourself, just for yourself, 15 reasons why you love your company. Do this before you prepare such a text. It's just something useful. Write in all seriousness for yourself 15 reasons why you love your company. Many of my students who did this found it to be a very useful exercise for themselves. Then prepare a text about the company, shareholders, brief history, our achievements, awards, our main products. Who are the clients? Salary, bonuses, reviews, department or store or branch, who the manager is, what the team is like, what the company offers, benefits package. Recent corporate events, real stories of people's growth within the company, the role's mission, key responsibilities of this role, and main decisions that can be made. This kind of text should be ready to sell the job. Because in mass hiring, if you don't want to constantly deal with ghosting, with candidates disappearing, if you don't want to struggle with a low acceptance rate of your job offers, if you don't want high turnover at the entry level, you need to actively sell. including during interviews. So there you have it. That's the text. Now for the homework assignment, since we had our first lesson today, for a real job opening, gather information from the hiring manager, that is, fill out the application plus search strategy, create a candidate profile, which is a table with requirements, create an evaluation table, which is essentially one element. So this is the profile and it's already entered into the table. Write the job description, create a phone call script, prepare a text for presenting the job during the interview. That's all for today. If you have any questions about today's lesson, please write them down. If there are no questions, write down what was most valuable. If you're not enrolled in our course yet, I invite you to take this course with us. I'll show you the program now. Next, we'll discuss where to post job openings. We'll go through many different resources, including Telegram chats and Viber and so on. Then we'll talk about where to independently search for passive candidates. How to conduct mass interviews, that is, how to interview many people at once, how to conduct individual interviews and how to sell the job, make a job offer, and guide the onboarding process. These are the main points we cover here. Thank you. After the lesson, I realized that the job description needs to be improved. Excellent conclusion. Thank you too. Thank you. And the checklist is extremely useful. Yes. So you see, we're only focusing on mass hiring here, with an eye on this specific area. Everything else in this course will be purely about mass hiring as well. We cover blue-collar jobs, loaders, all these types of workers here. Thank you, very informative. The part about phone interviews was really needed. Yes, a phone interview must be very well organized. Thank you, Mike. You're welcome, friends. Well then, thank you all for your attention, for your interest in this topic, and for your desire to improve mass hiring. I thought it would be great to improve it everywhere to have an impact on this. So I'm glad for your interest, your response, and I'm happy to have been helpful in this direction. So see you soon. Have a good evening, everyone. Bye-bye.